topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
And welcome to Triversity Talk. I am here with you tonight. I am Wendy Stewart Kaplan, sometimes known as Wendy Stewart, sometimes known as Wendy Kaplan, but you can never have too many aliases in this world nowadays. Thank you for joining us this evening. Tonight's topic, this has been a show I've wanted to do for a long time for a bunch of reasons. Right now, the political climate that surrounds everyone, and specifically in the LGBTQ community, it's a very unstable political climate. It's scary. And there's been things said by politicians on certain sides that are absolutely threatening to people. With that, we are, 3 years, I don't know, we're coming out of the pandemic or 3 years into it, or I don't know where we stand with that, but that's another thing that's been very, very unsettling. And I think everybody will agree the world is a very, very different place. And it even was, 4 years ago. So in my own mind, I was thinking about how this is affecting people. How is it affecting my friends? How are we planning our futures or getting on with our life? So tonight's segment, I'm calling Psychology and Mental Health in the LGBTQ community. And I have a wonderful psychologist here with us tonight who absolutely is a personal friend as well. So I know he is completely genuine, and he's been part of the LGBTQ plus community for over 15 years, involved in various organizations, and as he likes to say, fighting the good fight for the community. True words have never been spoken. He's an advocate for human rights, and just as much, he's an advocate for mental health. He'd like to share his unique perspective on the current state of affairs with us this evening. So please welcome Anu Singh. Yay!
Hey, yay for you, Wendy.
So good to have you here. I hope that was a glowing introduction. I pride myself on
Thank you.
Glowing introduction. So, I've wanted you on the show for a long time, and because I was interested in your perspective on things as you're a professional. The rest of us are out there just like trying to deal with everything that's going on. And, you start your day, you pick up your phone. Some people watch TV in the morning, but, for me, I'm always racing. I pick up my phone and I get bombarded with all of this horrible stuff that I can't believe is happening. And then that continues throughout the day. So as a psychologist, how do you get people to learn how to deal with these very uncertain times that we're living in right now?
Well, that's certainly not an easy answer, because the truth is the things that are happening are real. They're not something that you have fabricated in your mind. You're not crazy. What you're hearing and seeing is very real. And, when these kinds of very, very harsh things, negative things, threatening things occur, it's only a natural reaction to be nervous, be concerned, be afraid about these kinds of things. I think one thing to keep in mind when you have those kinds of feelings is, well, what are the things that you yourself can do to, potentially maybe make things better? What do you have control over? You know, when you hear all these things that are happening in the world with the politics and the world disasters and the violence, and in our country, unfortunately, the gun violence and
incredible,
the
right.
injustice, those things, you certainly can't control those things.
Right.
And you're hearing about them, and you're not making them up. They really are happening. And yet you can't do you feel like you can't do anything about it. So sometimes what you can do is to help yourself in your own personal lives is to think about what it is that you can do. You can most definitely, you know, you mentioned, you know, activism, you mentioned fighting the good fight.
Right.
Those are certainly things we all can do. We all can, you know, we all can go out and protest. We all can write our politicians. We all can express ourselves. We all can have conversations. And when I say conversations, I don't mean conversations where you are yelling and attacking people.
Conversations where you're exchanging information.
Where you're exchanging ideas, potential perspectives, and also the facts. And it's so unfortunate that we're living in a world where facts are debatable, as if, you know, there's an option, you know, for what is truthful and what is not.
Oh yeah, when they tell you the color red is really purple, and the color purple is really, I mean, that so completely undermined truth, right? I mean, we know that in media there is exaggeration, but now we have steps further where truth has been completely invalidated.
Yes.
So, and it has really turned people inside out and upside down during these times.
And what's the most scary part about that is that it's not just this small, obscure group of people. It's actually a large group of people, and it's normative. You know, this word normal or normative is a very
normative. We're hearing it all the time.
You know, well, what normal? What is normal? Well, you know, you have to really, for the listeners here, because, you know, who knows what people think and how people think, but at least for the listeners here, we can have a conversation. Normal, normative. Think about it in terms of math, you know, in terms of statistics. It just means that there's a majority or a large amount of occurrences of the incident, or there's a significant enough amount of the occurrence of an incident that it is not unusual. Now, does that mean that it is a good thing, or that is the way to be, or it is the right thing? That is a different kind of question. Right. Oftentimes, what is normal in the statistical sense could be the right thing, or the good thing, or the healthy thing. But sometimes what is statistically normative or normal could also be a bad thing and harmful to people. So you have to have that in your mind, that there are two different things. There's the norm statistically, but then also there is what is healthy and good, and what is harmful and negative and bad.
So in terms of, you know, what is healthy and good, okay, well, you're going to use those terminologies, what's normal or what the norm is. Let's just say, you know, our definitions, even in the LGBTQ plus community, now gender fluid, we have different terminologies. I believe it's become a lot more personal. And that's it. And it should be that person's normalness. That's what's normal to them. Do you understand? Like if someone is into something that is not hurting anyone, but they're into something that a fetish or something that is, it's highly personal. You know, they may share it with a partner. They can share it with a group, right? We have all these different groups, and that's normal. It's their normal. And I think, what's gotten so confused is the amount of things that are being done now that are harmful, right? That people are trying to pass off as normal, or in the name of religion. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely hateful and harmful.
Right. So let's just take that as an example. Religion is the most normative thing. Like the vast majority of people believe in something. You know, not even if you actively participate, you have this designation or you identify with a religion. Now, that may be statistically normal, but then what you do with that determines whether it is healthy normal.
Right.
So when you're talking about having a uniqueness or a fetish that it's not harming anyone, but it's positive for that individual, and you're saying that's normal, what you mean is it's normal because it's not harming it. So what is normal statistically or universally is not to cause harm to other people,
Right,
and
exactly.
not to cause harm to yourself. So in that sense, absolutely, even though it may be something unique to a small group of people, it absolutely is normal because you are living a healthy life. You are living a life that you feel happy in. You are living a life where you're not harming yourself or others.
Right.
And that, of course, is normative or normal. Absolutely.
For that particular
No,
group.
for
every
that person,
yeah.
but for everyone, including the religious people, including those who may be extreme on the religious ends. That's still normal. Why? For the reason that you are not hurting anyone, you are not hurting yourself, and you are happy. So it's normal. Absolutely.
So what is so I'm curious about your perspective, like what has happened, because this is confusing. No matter what religion you are, but we can just take Catholic and the church and believing in Christian values, or what used to be Christian values. Why do you think it's become completely twisted? How can people talk about pro-life when those same people are talking about it's okay to have guns? Now, what goes on in people's heads, right? I'm asking you this because of what you do.
What's so hard to process in our head? How is this? That's what a lot of people experience, this bewilderment about what is going on in this world. Are we living are these people zombies? Like, what is going on? Well, as much as we want to think they're zombies possessed by some kind of pathological germ in their brain, I suspect that that's not the case. What is actually going on? So, it's not unique to any one particular religion. So my background, I'm Indian. So, I know a little bit, not a whole lot, because I'm American. About what might occur in India, because from family or whatever, you hear it in the background. So let's take Christianity, for example, here. And what you're seeing isn't actually the Christianity per se, but it's actually the manner in which people process what Christianity is, and the way that it's processed is in how their persona is, what their personality is. And these are people that do not value individual rights. They do not value healthiness for an individual. What is more important to them is that there's somebody in power, and they're subservient to this thing in power, this person in power, and they must be obedient, and they must be everyone must be in line. And if you're not in line with the authority and the system, then you're bad. That personality formulation is really what's going on. And whereas people that care about, that are able to see nuances and also tolerance of things that are not understood, having an open mind, those are the people that are able to be much more understanding and appreciative of other people, and understand what's more what's healthy and what's not healthy, versus it's my way. And if it's not this way, and it's not even my way, it's not the way it's supposed to be,
right?
Which is like this fabricated construct, and they're able to understand that the way it's supposed to be is completely made up. It's completely made up by a group of humans. Right. Now, it's not unique to and I myself was it was like eye-opening when I thought about this. It's not unique to Christianity and white people, because if you think about speaking from my background, in India, there is all of a sudden a conservativeness that has arose in India. Mm-hmm. And it's like these extremists, just like there's extremism in Christianity, there's also extremism in Hinduism, where everyone has to be Hindu, and you have to fit into this religious norm the way, even if it's not your way, it has to be the way. And it's like this same exact phenomenon that's happening in two completely different countries. And, at the same time, they are, there's the world's largest, the most powerful, dare I say, US, the most powerful democracy in the world, the largest democracy, India. So, those things are now shifting, who's more powerful, who's more, whatever. Point being, there's these two very diverse groups of people in two very diverse religions, because one is monotheistic, one is polytheistic, and yet
Right,
you have the same
exactly.
exact phenomena. And so those in Islam, those Muslim terrorist extremists, well, those extremist Christians are just the same. They're cut from the same exact cloth.
No, but why? Okay, why do we think that this is going on now? I mean, so you just brought up a good point, because I can deal with things as they're happening in the United States and what's going on in Florida and attacks on the LGBTQ plus community, using the community as a scapegoat for a lot of this stuff. But in actuality, to your point, this is going on all over the world right now. What is it that has just made this hate spring up? And what
I am not this all-knowing
no, I know you're not, but I want your opinion.
My thought. Yes, I know everything. I know it all.
More than you.
What I think, the world is under such duress. Our population growth has skyrocketed. The world no longer has the capacity to handle this rate of population increase. Climate change is an example of what occurs when there is no bounds on population growth. And what's happening is the resources that the world has, are starting to be depleted. And what that does is all of a sudden, it again increases stress levels and concern and worry. Oh my God, what's going to happen to the human race? What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my children? What's going to happen to my descendants, to my great grandchild? I'm very worried. Oh my God. And that fear and anxiety is what provokes the high stress levels in people. When you get very, very stressed, that's when your vulnerabilities start to get activated.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's when the people that are more vulnerable towards being very, very authoritarian, believing that personality style, that's when that can start to get activated a little bit more. And that's what I kind of perceive may be happening. Yeah.
Well, it's the perfect situation for a politician to come in that who's like a dictator and can come in and just attack all over the place and have people that will follow him no matter what. Yes. And they can lie. But I tell you, when we hear the word influencer and everybody thinks it is relevant to Facebook and Instagram, when I hear influencer, I think of some of what's going on, and I can only come back to the United States, some of what's going on in this country right now, these bills that they're trying to pass that where they are using, if they want to attack the LGBTQ plus community because of their beliefs or how people are in that community, now they're going to use drag queens. All right, let's go. Think about it. You know how crazy that is. Let's go after the drag queens. It's absurd.
Yes,
but they're doing it.
Yeah, and they full well. It's not because they're not stupid. These are not people. These are what is intelligence and what is These are not people that have defective brains per se necessarily, because it's happening so vastly. This is a normal occurrence, statistically speaking, but is it a healthy occurrence? Is it harmful or is it beneficial? It's harmful, even though it's a frequent normal occurrence. So it's not that they're stupid, because there's just too many of them. What is occurring is that they full well are capable of understanding the difference between what is absurd and what is rational, but because they have this persona where everyone has to fall in line according to the one way of being, because God is the savior, and this belief system, and belief system is not equated with intelligence, because you could be the most smartest person in the world, and what you are taught and you don't know any different, that's what you're going to know, and that's how you're going to process information. It actually makes it worse when you're extremely superior, you have superior intelligence, and yet you have this twisted belief system and that's all you know.
But you are so right. You're talking about now. Right. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating. Although something you said, you know, that the person may be intelligent and they have this belief system, but they know that it's absurd. Here's what I feel. I feel like it's become Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Yeah, it is. It's like this zombie nation. I know here in Pennsylvania, we deal with locally school board issues, and you can watch our local school board on YouTube because the sessions are taped. And I watch these things, and, you know, I make documentaries in remote places in the world, but I look at these, I'm like, this stuff would make incredible documentary if you cut it correctly, because the things people say are so completely out there.
Absurd. Out of touch with reality.
They're absurd. You want to say to them, how did you evolve to this level? Look, there's always going to be, you know, people that have small minds. There's always going to be people that have bigoted opinions, but nowhere near the kind of stuff that we're seeing now. And, you know, having our center, our LGBTQ center, you know, lately we've become a lot more vocal. We put signs up all over, you matter. And I have one in front of my house. A lot of people in town took them. Well, now people are taking those signs down, coming along. They can't stand to see those signs. We've placed painted rocks all over town with just really nice sayings on them, because we are trying to bring community together. And that includes, and no, you don't even need to be LGBTQIA or any letter. You need to be a good person. And we want you on board. And since we started this anew, people have been crawling out of the woodwork. It's great. But when I go on Facebook and I see some of the comments there that someone thinks they have a right to write something that hateful, I just don't even know how to deal with it.
Yeah, it's pure hatred. It's coming out of a place of complete lack of sense of self, because they're not, they don't even, I don't, you know, this is again me speaking, I don't think they have a real sense of who they are. I think they have completely surrendered to the absurd thing that everyone must fall in line into. They no longer have any self-confidence. They've literally given themselves up because they just have this belief that they no longer matter, or they cannot, you know, exist or survive without the you know, being in that way. And if anything attacks whatever that way is, because if something happens to that way, the Lord or whatever it may be, oh my God, well, if I can't, you know, take care of myself, the only one that's taking care of me is this greater power, the Lord. And if that's not there, oh, holy shoot, we're all screwed, because now I can't survive without the greater being that's telling me how to do and what to do. You know, now I'm completely God. It's like a psychological annihilation. Like, you know, they can't tolerate.
I like that, psychological annihilation. That is my buzzword. I'm stealing that from you. I will, because we constantly say, you know, how can this person like be that way, react that way? Oh my God, you know, I can't believe what they wrote. I can't believe what they said. But yeah, they have been psychologically annihilated.
Well, by saying those things, they're defending against psychological self-annihilation, psychological annihilation, because they're protecting the protector,
right?
You know, in their mind, you know, because that protector is real, that way is the only way. But if anything happens to that way, then I'm gone.
Yeah, it in a sense, if anything happens to that way, it's their vulnerability, and that that everything is going to end for them. Yes. So that becomes what matters to them. How so you grew up in New York, right? You grew up you're local. Yeah. So your parents, though, where did they come from?
Yeah, India.
They were from India.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like things that they told you growing up, because so you're first generation here.
Yeah. Yeah. First
That
generation.
that's
I'm a
so.
Catholic schoolboy my whole life.
What was
I'm a
that?
Catholic schoolboy my whole life.
Catholic
Um,
school, right? So first
I'm not
generation and
Catholic,
Catholic
but I'm
school,
Christian.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm Christian, not Catholic, but I'm a Catholic schoolboy my whole life. Yep. Yeah, middle class,
Right. But I'm
immigrant,
curious how
severe
your
struggle.
background affected you growing up, coming out, because that's a lot to deal with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not out to my family. I mean, they all know, but they look down on me. There's a lot of hatred. There's a lot of
Right. Right.
looking down and negativity. Even though I'm independent, accomplished, I have my own plate. All of that. None of that matters because I'm not according to their that way that everyone has to
Yeah, you're talking
be.
about that way. I guess my family was very mixed religion, but I always felt my family could never understand me because I wasn't like them. So it's that way, or when they can't deal with who you are, right?
Mhm.
You said something earlier about the open mind. So they can't deal with who you are because their mind doesn't open that way, then they can't
Right.
deal with you. And that's hard.
You know, and it's so hard to process. Their mind doesn't open that way because they are so psychologically vulnerable. They're protecting themselves. They're so
Right.
psychologically vulnerable that they just are not able to do anything else without ending up killing themselves mentally, psychologically. And,
Right.
they have to come to an understanding that no, nothing bad, no one is hurting you, no one is going to attack you, nothing bad is going to happen to you. And to get somebody of that kind of mindset to that place that no one is attacking you is almost, it's like moving mountains sometimes.
I know, but you know what? I think you got to do it. It's like, I look at you and I look at what you're doing in the profession that you've chosen and everything. You're helping. You're an advocate.
I try,
Right.
yeah, definitely advocate. I try and, you do the best you can.
You do the best you can, but you're trying at
Yeah.
least to do something. What I had an interesting conversation today. I broadcast If These Walls Could Talk from Pangea, and I love the owner, Steven. And we were talking, and he said, I don't understand what's the matter with people. There's all this stuff going on, and they just seem oblivious to it. And it certainly can threaten their own, on the Lower East Side, their existence, their home, or what. And I looked at him, I said, I can tell you what's going on. They are burnt. People are burnt out. They're burnt out. They don't want to deal. There's just too much when you're, blitzkrieg with your phone in the morning, or you go on social media, which, can be extremely toxic. And then living in New York City, you walk around and you see the subway situation or the situation in the streets. And even me, and people call me the Energizer Bunny. There are times I know, but you know what? I come home and I have to take a breath, because sometimes it just all looks like, oh my God, I just cannot see another negative thing or hear another negative thing.
Right.
I feel we're like bombarded with all of this. And that's what I was saying to him. People just get burnt out and they don't want to deal anymore.
Well, you need to take a break. You need to make sure everyone needs to live their life. You certainly don't want to just sit there and just ruminate over negativity. You need to live your life, and you need to live a full, happy life. And constantly seeing all the negativity all the time is clearly going to, harm your well-being.
It totally eats away at you, and it keeps you from, accomplishing your even me, who's got so many ideas and goals and hopes and dreams. Sometimes I say to Alan, I said, you have to stop talking about this because it immobilizes me. I get immobilized where all I want to do, I suffer from this. I'm going to admit this right here. I never had this syndrome before. I actually put Netflix on. I was never a Netflix person. I put Netflix on, and I find, like, I watched last night, I was watching a zombie movie. Oh my God, Anu, I was reduced to watching a zombie movie.
No, don't say you were reduced. It's great to watch zombie
I'm not a
movies.
girl that watches zombie.
Fantasy and horror, and it's entertainment.
It just took my mind off of everything that's going on out there. I have a couple of comments I want to read. Amanda Pauly is an amazing activist, and she is a member of our board. And she works for a group called Red Wine and Blue. I believe it's a mother's advocacy group. They're pushing back against the banned books, the school board thing. Amanda wrote, Anu, I'm very concerned about the overall mental health care crisis the country is in, specifically for our LGBTQ plus youth. In rural areas, oh my God, and this is so true, there is little access for care while this hateful rhetoric is being spread. Is there any advice we can offer them?
Yeah, well, I think it's an excellent question, and it's a placed question, because it should be like prominent on the news and everywhere. This mental health crisis for children. The issue is that a lot of mental health providers, first of all, there's not like this unlimited supply of mental health providers, as well as we're not even talking about how qualified people are and what kind of evidence-based practice people practice in. So it's like all kinds of issues in that realm. But at the same time, the ones that are there, they may not be as willing or open to taking on children and children and families, and this is really why there's such a crisis, because first of all, there may not be this unlimited supply. And second of all, the ones that are there in practice may not be taking children. And those are the ones that are the most vulnerable, because the reason being, it's so hard when you have to work with children, because you have to rely on the parents, and the parents have to be 100% involved in the mental health of the child. And then also, like, you have to have some, cognizance of how to go about helping children. You have to really know that you have to really work with families and do parent skills training and do those kinds of things.
Very delicate. You're juggling parents and kids, and you have to be very sensitive to everyone's feelings.
Right. And you have to be able to navigate any kind of resistance and bringing the ones that are in power, who are the adults, on page with you, on board with you, so that then the child can be actually helped. And it's not about, here, take this kid, lock him in the room with you, and in an hour he'll be fixed. So here, fix this kid, he's broken. And that's definitely not the situation. It's more about, here, help us address, the dynamics, the family dynamics and the community dynamics that are occurring to help the child. That's really what has to happen. Now, even if you have a dearth of mental health professionals in the community, or qualified professionals, or whatever the case may be, you can most definitely do things that, like families can get together, community organizations can get, families together, or create events and different things like that, and kind of spread positivity and acceptance, and the community kinds of things, like community activities. I think in rural community, I'm not from a rural community, so I don't know how it goes, but certainly I've gone apple picking, whatever. You do a lot of social community activities where there's a lot of positive tone. And
we have a wonderful community where we are, people that are ready to do that. I think, and one of the things, I'm sure Amanda would agree with me on this, when these kids though go to school and they hear the negative comment, or they know what goes on at the school board meetings, they know what other kids' parents say, and there's just not enough support for them. They're getting bullied.
It's really interesting, but look at what you're saying. There's nothing wrong, or there's the child is not the one that has a mental health disorder.
No, the people that are perpetrating.
It's the society that is disordered. That is literally these people in this community are harming children. They are literally doing it. And there's nothing wrong with the child. The child is behaving as the child should, given those circumstances. Now that being said, certainly because of the surroundings that they live in, they would warrant coping skills, and they would warrant mental health supports. One thing that can be done is really advocating with the politicians, or people in power, to help increase access to mental health. One thing that could be done, so school psychologists School psychologists specialize in working with children.
Right.
And when you're talking about clinical psychologists, social workers, they don't specialize necessarily in working with kids. There is a profession out there, a mental health profession, that specifically
kids
specializes to work with children and education. It's a school psychologist. Make sure that whatever place you're in, make sure that the school psychologists are allowed to work with children after schools, and they're not confined to the walls of the school building.
That is a good point. That is a very good point, because there needs to be a neutral
license. In New York State, school psychologists are fighting for licensure. Help New York State. Write to the politicians in New York State and make sure that they know that they have to allow school psychologists to be licensed, so that there's an increased amount of mental health professionals. You're just going to increase the amount of mental health professionals, but what you're also going to do, like I said before, mental health professionals may be there, but they may not be working with children. By licensing school psychologists, you're going to increase the amount of mental health professionals who are actually trained or want to work with children and families. So that's one thing you can do.
Well, right. And I'm also thinking, while we're talking, my wheels are turning. So much has gone online, and probably you doing this too. Therapists are working on Zoom. Mm-hmm. So it really does open up. I never thought about this before, but it really opens up, because I think we've had an issue in our community in the past, just getting, the amount of therapists that would be needed. Right. And you talked about what's involved with having a school psychologist and having them branch out from there. But I'm also thinking, with therapy available now on Zoom, it at least gives the kids and the families a place to start. That's a very good thing.
So I think one thing is that, but this I think applies to all professions, where you cannot be licensed or you can't cross state boundaries even on Zoom. So if I'm in New York State, I'm a licensed psychologist in New York State. I can't practice in Pennsylvania without getting parity in Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, I have access to that population. That population doesn't have a clinician. Here's a clinician who wants to work with that population, and yet I can't even go via Zoom. Like, I can't even do therapy with you right now because you're in Pennsylvania and I'm in New York. Get rid of these goddamn. Sorry.
You're 100% right, and I love what you're saying. I didn't even think about this. It's right.
Yeah, that's a block. That's a block. You just, even though you're capable of reaching that population, the laws are preventing you. Because of parity.
You are talking then about that laws have to be changed through our political representatives, and 100%, you should be able, a therapist that is in New York State should be able over Zoom to have clients that are in Pennsylvania.
Or make it a little bit easier, or, make the mechanism a little bit easier or something. Because there's a crisis, because there's a shortage.
Right. Because there's a shortage. I just want to pop on here for a sec. Evan Lawrence loves your life views. Thank you, Evan, for tuning in. One of the things I wanted to discuss with you that I've become very aware of, I can't talk about the statistic, but I can talk about in our community, and especially in New York City, people we know. And it seems to me more people are taking their own lives now. They and I don't know, is it the political environment? Is it the pandemic? Like, how did people evolve to this where everything is so hopeless that they just want to end it?
Yeah, that's one of the most difficult topics to understand.
Right?
Because just like you mentioned, there could be signs and things like that, when we were just briefly discussing right before the show, but sometimes it just comes out of nowhere and you don't even know what happened. Suicide is an extremely complex situation. And one thing to really do your best to keep in mind is that, this person really, really is struggling, and it is not necessarily their intent to cause this devastation to the people that care about them. It's just that they just were not able in that moment. They weren't able to tolerate the pain that they were in, or they just were not able to navigate themselves out of whatever the thought processes were that were going on at that moment in time. Suicide can occur because of an impulsive, if somebody's impulsive.
Definitely, that is absolutely one kind of when it comes like from left field as a reaction. And maybe the person didn't 100% intend for it to work, but it worked. And
right.
There have been definitely that, you know what, I say there's nothing we can do about that, because
right.
was a moment.
There's no predicting.
Right.
Sometimes what happens is it's like this, I'm going to say that it's almost like this foreign thought seeps, this insidious thought process seeps into the person's head. And then all of a sudden it's like this thought process is in this person's head, and they're experiencing this thought process and they can't get out of it.
They can't get out of it. They're trapped. Trapped.
They are hostage.
Right.
They have become hostage to this thought process. And it's almost like, they're being compelled to do this, and they may not even want to, but it's just compelling.
Right.
And it's really, really hard you can't just say, oh, snap out of it. You cannot, that's not reality.
Right.
That's not the truth.
Right.
They really need help in being pulled out of this thought. They're stuck in this thought process, and to pull them out, they need help. And that's when, maybe as a friend or an acquaintance or a relative or a loved one,
and you see it, and you can see it.
Things that might be occurring, and has their mood changed drastically. And it's really hard sometimes to really understand what drastic mood, what does that look like? Because it's not just always, they were happy and now they're just sad and now they're suicidal. Doesn't always look like that, although sometimes it could, because it could be that they somehow feel lighter. Maybe they feel like a weight has been lifted off their shoulder.
Wow.
Maybe they feel a little bit happier, like they're in a better mood. Maybe they're more generous. Maybe, it's not something that you can always tell. One thing that you can do is you can kind of be cognizant. Okay, what are their life circumstances? Are they under certain kind of a difficult life circumstance? Are they under a lot of pressure at work? Are they in an abusive relationship? Is there some kind of life stress that's painful, that's causing them harm? And when that is occurring, being bullied at school, when that is occurring, and then there's a change in behavior, a change in presentation, a change in mood. Anytime there's any kind of verbalization or writing or anything of that
those are indicators.
Implies anything where I wish I wasn't around. It would be better if I was dead. Or this is not, I want to kill myself. This is like, well, you would have been happier if I just didn't show up today, wouldn't you have? Something like that. Little subtle little things like that. Do a check-in. Doesn't mean that you're responsible for saving their life, but your check-in could be that one thing that helps to, kind of help them step back a little bit, pull them out.
It's funny that you use the word check-in. I have, we have similar circle of friends, and I have certain ones I'm like, hey, it's Wendy, I'm doing a friend check-in. I do actually do that, because if I don't hear from somebody for a prolonged period of time, I don't let it go. Hey, are you okay? Hey, are you going through something? I think all of us, and talking to you, this has been very helpful. You really brought up a lot of good points. We all need to be more mindful of other people, what other people are feeling, and more observant, and as their friend, to just try and be there. None of us are trained, but every single human being can be there for another human being. Like, firmly.
100%. 100%. I agree with you.
I firmly believe. Now, what made you choose to become a psychologist? Like, why that track in life?
That's such a, I don't know. So, it wasn't like psychologist per se. Well, So it was more about being a scientist. It wasn't even about psychology.
Okay, that's yeah.
So it started about, just being a scientific person, because I'm a scientist. It's the scientist practitioner model. I'm a trained scientist. But it's that kind of like curiosity about the world and science. But then, as I grew older, and just being a sensitive person and just being sensitive to people and wanting to connect with people, empathetic. That's when the scientist kind of melded with, just human behavior. And also I was originally fascinated by criminal behavior and why do people, how does this end up happening where people, do these horrific crimes and,
right.
this curiosity that
it was curiosity,
scientific curiosity, but then it kind of moved towards the human mind, and then, just also wanting to be helpful and helping people. And that's where, and it's always been kind of psychology from pretty much, high school onward, pretty much. So I never wavered.
Interesting. So people have fascinated you probably they completely fascinate me. That's why I do this. I didn't get a degree in psychology, but I love conversations with people, what they say and how people think. And obviously the how a person thinks has got to be something that, spoke to you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Why do people do things? Now I know so much, but that fascination when I didn't know is what drove the passion,
Right. The passion. Well, you won't believe it, but we are 3 minutes short of ending our show. I never know where the time goes. I am so grateful that we had this time. Can you, so in your last 3 minutes, can you it's your platform. You can say whatever you want. What do you see happening for the LGBTQ plus community going forward in terms of being a community, in terms of how things are changing and how to survive in the political climate that we're in? Boy, is that a loaded question.
It's immediately come together and get together and stay together and hold on to each other tight. You mentioned one of the most vulnerable populations is the trans population earlier when we're talking, so I'm not sure, I'm a he, him, cisgendered, but, my friend asked me to join her in a video for a trans artist. Mila Jam is a trans artist.
Oh, of course I know her. Yeah.
So she recently had done a video, but my friend Clover, who she asked me, why don't you come along and support? And they're doing this video. And I was more than happy to, again, I'm I'm not trans, I'm cis, I'm more than happy to come together, in the community. And support.
That was the video that Daniel Nardicchio did, right?
Oh yeah, well, it was in his venue, yeah. It
was in his space, but that was, and a shout out to Daniel Nardicchio, who does do a ton for the community, not just a club person. He is amazing what he does, producer, club person, and incredible advocate. That the reason he wanted to make that video was it was pushback to everything that was going on. And thank you for working on that as well.
Yeah,
I didn't realize you were in it. And yes, Lady Clover Honey is, she's always out there. She always trying to involve people. So
she's phenomenal. She's phenomenal.
I'm glad, I'm glad that you got a chance to do that. Handles, best way to reach you.
On Instagram, Desi is like means from the homeland. It means India or South Asian. This DESI, not Desi. It's pronounced Desi, but although spelled Desi, DESI _gay GAY_boy.
Okay, so it's on Instagram, DESI
_gay_boy.
GAY_boy. Boy.
Yeah.
Okay. Boy, those underscores, I don't do too well with those. I got to tell you. I always do this stuff. Oh, and a parting thought from Amanda Pauly. Thank you, Amanda. Wonderful talk and so helpful and informative. Yes, and she's an amazing advocate. She's going to be one of our upcoming guests. Thank you for being here tonight, Anu. You could have been anywhere, but you're here. And
thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you to everyone who tuned in and knew 1 more minute. I always get to take my little parting shot. Sometimes I do at the beginning of the show. Look at the camera, say cheese. 1 more. I know it's hokey, right? I really like it. And then I'm sure you've seen it. I put them up on Facebook. I want to have a gallery showing of all of these like things I've shot with my camera on this computer. There's something so like bizarre about it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everybody who tuned in tonight. We'll see you next week. Have a good week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hugs and kisses. Bye.